Hello, everyone. Hello. I am Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast for today, Monday, the 8th of February. Hope you're staying safe, everyone. I know there's been a bit of snow outside. I am joined by Labour supporter Zach.
Hello.
I want to start by talking about Captain Tom Moore. Sadly, last week, as you well have known, he sadly died at the age of 100. What are your thoughts for Captain Tom Moore, Zach, right now?
Yes. We had a sad day the other day. Last week, just after we chatted. Yeah, what a legend! That's all we can say. He's one of our great British heroes, Charlie, no doubt about it. And the amount of money he raised for the NHS and what he did, it may look small, like just doing 100 laps around a garden may sound like a small thing, but it meant a lot to a lot of people, and he meant a lot to us, all ages, not just the old, the elderly, the young as well. He was aspiring to everyone, and it's such a sad loss when we had such a great British hero that has fighting in wars and has flown the flag for our country, and gets recognised for what he did. Just take a life, boom, like that in a matter of weeks, days after going to hospital, which is sad. So yeah, what a sad day it was last week, but his memory lives on, thankfully, and we're all in his thoughts.
You'll never walk alone, Captain Tom. We'll always remember you. And that is the news there. Captain Tom Moore last week died at 100 years old, sadly from coronavirus and pneumonia. So my thoughts are with him and his family. But we're going to move on, Zach, now to the news. And, well, week 6 of lockdown, being concerned about the South Africa variant of coronavirus. Prime Minister speaking today, mass vaccination centre, saying all the vaccines are effective. And we had some data out last week from Oxford and AstraZeneca that said their vaccine can reduce transmission by about 76%. What do you make of that latest data that was released by Oxford University?
Well, let's start with the good news first. With the Oxford data released last week, I saw it and read parts of it, and I thought, wow. I think that was such good news, what the data released last week, saying reducing transmission, community transmission by 76%. That is great. Honestly, that's great news. Now, that's obviously, Charlie, that's with just the normal virus, the COVID-19 virus, and I imagine it would just be effective on the normal virus and probably the Kent variant. We don't. The only problem is, as we just heard recently, Charlie, is that it may not be as effective on the South African variant. Now, I should put a disclaimer, because I know people are panicking a little bit and getting a little bit worried about what's happening with the South African variant on the effect of the viruses on this vaccine. But although it looks like the South African variant is less effective on the vaccine, it still stops people going to hospital. So I think if it's still presenting people going to hospital, we don't know the percentage of the figure yet, but we know that I think it must be over 50% at least, because if it's stopping people from going to hospital and getting severe problems with the virus, that means it must be effective enough, even though it's less effective on the Kent variant and the normal the normal global virus. Then it must mean it must be quite effective, because if it's stopping people going to hospital. Now, they probably need to do a bit more of a study of this, but we've been told we're going to get boosters by autumn potentially, which I suppose is good news. If you want, it's at the end of the day, Charlie, boosters is not actually a bad thing, because it just helps to give you that little bit of extra protection.
Yeah,
and we get a booster for the flu gel normally, so it's not like we never heard of a booster. It's not terrible news, and these vaccines, if necessary, can be tweaked to suit the vaccine with a matter of days. They've got all the tools and resources, genetic code, that they need to obviously of the actual virus that came out of China originally, and all they need to do is, they can just tweak it if necessary. They can just tweak the now, here, now, and it takes a few days. So I think, apart from the way it sounds, it's not as bad as if you read the headline, for example. It's not as bad if you look at the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly was a bit of an issue last week. The BBC and Sky News were reporting a lot of that. About 147 cases have been reported, I think, in the UK, which I know isn't much. Actually, what the Prime Minister said today might have reassured people that the vaccines are all safe, they are effective. I know South Africa have paused the rollout of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, but it seems like the vaccine is effective still against the South Africa strain. Not as much as against the UK variant, but still enough that it will stop people suffering from the severe disease and hospitalisation. So we're going to keep that data up. That will be more announced next week when we have the official review of lockdown. But Zach, I wanted to move on now from the UK to, we're going to go back to the UK in a bit. European countries, Portugal really struggling, and so are France with the UK variant. And I believe, Zach, Portugal have been cutting ties whether to lock down or not.
Yes, interesting. Portugal exactly. Portugal has had a bit of a problem, really, which is surprising, because we have seen cases really, hospitalizations rise in Portugal. And the virus is not finished there yet. And it's interesting because I feel like, to me, that Portugal is a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of the world. If you look at, I saw I think the WHO released some statistics on
Portugal is an outlier.
COVID. Yeah, Portugal is an outlier because the number of deaths are lowest for 3 weeks. However, the hospitals are still going up. So I do wonder whether there is a bit of a lag in terms of the time you go to hospital and then the death. Now, I know there's normally a bit of a lag. So if the deaths are coming down, that must be good. But the hospitals are going up, which means there must be a severe delay between reporting hospitalizations and death. There must be a really big gap in there. And they're actually one of the worst hit countries in the world, actually, with COVID deaths. If we look at John Hopkins saying that the most recording the most daily deaths per 100,000 population, it might be because of, I think, what I'm reading here. It's about it could be because of the variant from here that's infecting
the UK variant.
Portugal actually went to lockdown 15th of January. So they are actually in a lockdown at the moment. So
we've got a curfew as well, I believe.
Yeah. So they got around about 2,500 infections around about that per day. They've got 768 in total. But the cases have been trending downwards. Because last month it was reaching a high about 16,000, something like that. So yeah, the situation in Portugal is a bit mixed because where it is, the case rate and the deaths going down. That's a good start, but then the hospitalizations are going up, which means there must still be that delay, and that means there must still be a lag on that reporting, and that's actually, I think that's a bit concerning. Actually, think about it. The lag in reporting. I know I don't think anything suspicious is going on there, but there's a bit. Although they're getting better in terms of handling, there is still a problem with hospitalizations, Charlie. That's one of the main things.
That's in Portugal. France, I don't even know whether they're locking down or not. There's been a lot of rows in France that they've had 2 lockdowns. They don't want another one because of the economy could collapse. And Zach, I must admit, the EU have had a shambolic handling of this vaccine crisis. And Mr. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, right now is in a bit of a denial here because they're not France and many other EU countries. They're struggling to get hold of supply of the vaccine.
Well, as I said last week, the EU had a bit of pie on its face, really, because of its handling of the vaccine and the handling of border controls with the Article 16 with Northern Ireland. They're still getting a bit of pickle. They're slugging the UK off, and I honestly I can't see why, because at the end of the day, they're just struggling. They're the ones doing extremely crap, Charlie, and they're the ones that are just blaming it on us for whatever reason. You know, it's a weird thing for the EU to do that. Emmanuel Macron also made misleading comments about the COVID vaccine as well a few days ago, claiming it wasn't efficiently over 65. In fact, Germany has actually stopped producing vaccines for over 65s in their country in some of their vaccines, which I think is just quite strange because there's no evidence really. There's not enough really evidence really suggests that the fact taking the vaccine, really affects badly the over 65s. So I think they're really getting a bit of a tit for tat here, Charlie, because they're really such a mess over this situation. And in France, whilst cases have been stable, obviously it's still up from where they were a few weeks ago. I mean, they're averaging about 19,000 cases a day at the moment, nearly 20,000. So they're looking at stricter rules potentially as well. But I think it's because of these variants that are strict. These variants are coming to France, so they're talking about stricter more testing, local self. They're actually increasing the self-isolation times, and they're making stricter use of the school closures. Interestingly, Charlie, as well. Any positive tests with a PCR antigen must be followed with an RT-PCR test within 36 hours. Rather than now isolate for 10 days rather than 7. Classes will close if one pupil tests positive with a variant.
Wow.
And also if one pupil's name in a contact with a parent or family member who's confirmed with one of the variants. That's very strict, Charlie.
That is draconian.
That is quite draconian. We knew France had some of the most draconian measures out there. You couldn't even leave your house sometimes. You'd have to go fill out a form normally.
Yeah,
if you wanted to document, if you wanted to even leave your home in the first place. It was so strict. But yeah, they're going back to some draconian measures because of the virus spreading across the country, unfortunately. And they're tightening up in the few areas.
They are, I think, as well, Zach. You got to look at the picture here at the moment. It's getting to a point where the variant is taking off in France, but it's taking off in here as well. Like they had to go into a lockdown, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very interesting way this variant spreads. It's a lot more transmissible, but we've got the vaccines, and we know the EU is struggling with that at the moment. So we have the vaccine rollout over here, over 12 million people in this country receiving their first dose. So it is so important that we get the vaccine rollout absolutely spot on. So that is the situation in most EU countries. But has just come through. 14,104 people in the UK have now tested positive in the last 24 hours. Deaths within 28 days of positive test down at 333. Zach, what do you make of the figures? Are they encouraging?
The figures, obviously, there's a weekend lag at the moment because we have data just coming from the weekend, and there seems to be a bit of a less reporting, a bit of a less reporting on the weekend because of, I don't know, administration issues or anything. That's normally less reporting on the weekend, so I wouldn't take too much out of it. But yes, the deaths are very interesting because they're under 1,000, which is promising, and where the case numbers are under 20,000 as well. Which is, really good. It's good so far. We're making a lot of progress. Just saying, Charlie, that's just come in actually. 333 actually just come from my phone here. Further deaths from Sunday. Cases have dropped to 14,104. So yeah, that's the effect of the weekend lag. But that's a big progress, Charlie. 333 further deaths today. I mean, tomorrow's figure is probably going to be a bit higher than that.
There will be.
So I wouldn't want to, I don't want to get too excited, but
no.
We are making progress. We are making progress. Let's just say that. Even with the variants around, I think, it's encouraging. The cases are coming down. We're a bit worried on the variants at the moment, but yes, the cases are coming down, and that's the main thing. So yeah, we're in prime position for some lifting of restrictions to be announced for next week, I think. Based on the way we're going, everything's coming down in the right direction now, Charlie. I think we're in prime position to,
but yeah,
to be lifting restrictions and sending our kids back to school.
I think, Zach, as well, that we are going to come on to that in a minute. But I mean, the figures are going to be different. Obviously, the cases are down though compared to the last week. I've just got the figures here. They're down 42,125. It's 25% drop since last week. Like, it's encouraging. And Tim Spector, who is the bloke who runs Zoe, he's a scientist. He actually called for when the lockdown was to start being easy. And he was talking about potentially having outdoor exercising being encouraged, and also potentially bringing back the rule of 6.
I think that's interesting. I think you could go with the rule of 6. I mean, based on what we got from the comments of last week, I think we're not going back to the tier system. I think it will be a nationwide approach, in terms of England, based on what I've seen, Charlie. So I think we could be encouraged to go back to rule of 6. I don't know whether it's too early yet. I think the first thing you want to do is get the schools open. But we could start lifting really some minor figures, such as allowing more outdoor exercise, traveling a little bit more. I suppose those are minor. I suppose those are. Yeah, exactly. I suppose those are the minor rules that could be, just trimmed down a little bit in terms of relaxations. So there could be just more than school openings on the 8th. We may have a few other measures as well, but we don't know it for sure yet. I mean, we're talking about the speculation in the papers, Charlie. I don't know of pubs opening in April, but with an alcohol ban. And then the alcohol being sold in May. Now, that sounds a bit ridiculous, if I have to say, because what's the point of a pub opening if you can't sell alcohol? But
there's been Nigel Farage took to Twitter the other day and called it on Twitter.
I actually agree on. I actually agree on that. I think it sounds a bit silly to open pubs without its alcohol, because the alcohol is the main selling point of a pub. Okay. But it sounds like when the pubs do open again, Charlie, that they're not going to have the usual 11, 10 p.m. curfews as well. So it sounds like all those restrictions involving pubs are going to be relaxed. Now, there may well still be some measures saying you have to sit at the table. It might be table service only, but you don't have to worry about, leaving at a certain time at a night or taking your customers out. We may be well on the case to that sort of thing. But next Monday is going to be the real focus, Charlie, of what the Prime Minister does announce, what he doesn't, and what the timeline is for opening it up. We are very likely to reach the target for vaccinating the top 4 by next week. So we're on target. We're on track. And we're on course for, I think.
Let's hope so. I have to be aware that people have to be careful travelling at the moment because of the snow.
Yeah.
There are some areas of the country have had some heavy snowfall.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now is essential to slowing the spread of this virus. It's really important to slow the spread of COVID-19. So that is the UK part pretty much done. Now, Zach, America, what do you make of Joe Biden's vaccine rollout? So for 100 million Americans in 100 days, is that achievable?
Very achievable. Can I just, I'd like to report to you, Charlie, that the US passed 2 million per day last week. This weekend, just on alone, in terms of vaccines rolled out. So we are I think America is well on its way to getting the 100 million in 100 days. I think it could be go as far as 150 million, if in my opinion. But this is a good rollout so far by Joe Biden. The question is, how long can he contain that figure and even increase it? Because where they go on a very fast supply. Now, the problem with going for a very fast supply is it then runs out eventually at the end. So whether he can maintain that is another thing. We will get to that point. But he's maintaining a good enough figure so far. He's going big and he's going hard. And it's working so far, Charlie. It's working a lot. Let's just say that. I mean, if you think about how we were compared to a few weeks ago when we left off with the Trump administration, it's very good, Charlie, at the moment. It's very good. I mean, we're up a million or so from where the Trump administration was in terms of vaccines. They're going to launch community at-home testing. There's a lot more kit being sent out there. There's been more counties are going to get more supplies of the vaccine. I think it's about a 16% increase in supplies, which is a big increase, I have to say. And they're sending also to pharmaceuticals rather than as well as hospitals. So do you know what? This is going very well for the Biden administration in terms of getting that out. I think it's going very well. And they're going on the right track with this. This is with Biden, Charlie, at the moment. I think they're going on much the right track. Their focus on COVID is working. Let's just say that their focus on COVID is working. They're currently holding a COVID briefing right now. Anthony Fauci has been involved in all the COVID briefings, which is a stark contrast compared to what we've seen with Trump's administration. You can just tell they're trying to use the trusty voices this time round. As I speak, and there's a COVID briefing going on. I will check afterwards what they've said on there as well. But yeah, it's going well in America in terms of the vaccine rollout. And as long as they can sustain it, I think they're well on the way to hitting 100 million within 100 days. I think they could even go as far as 150 million if needed to be. And that would be a massive achievement for Joe Biden, considering he pledged 100 million in 100 days. And that is going to be a big achievement for Joe Biden, which is looking like it on its way. And the first big test as well. So, yeah. Now he's got to worry about getting COVID relief bill out. He may not get it out this week because there's the impeachment trial of Donald Trump going on again this week as well, starting Tuesday at 6 p.m. our time. It's very likely he will be quitting because there won't be the numbers there. So, yeah, it'll just be Joe Biden will be focusing on the White House. It may be signing a lot more executive orders, a record amount of executive orders signed for a new president so far in these first few weeks. So the focus is going to be on the White House in terms of, him. But the main focus is going to be on the impeachment trial this week, Charlie, no doubt about it, starting from tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time on Tuesday.
It's going to be interesting, Zach, because if you think about it, Donald Trump has been impeached twice. I'm not going to go over that on here. I don't want to remain impartial to this. But, yeah, there'll be another impeachment trial of President Trump this week. I wonder how that's going to get on. Not sure the Nigel Farage is going to like that.
No, he won't.
No, we've seen that in America last year. So let me see what you think. Of course, America's Parliament, of course, Congress should gather tomorrow, or the Senate should gather tomorrow. There'll be a debate on that as well in America. Now, Zach, moving on to masks. Now, in Germany, there is stricter masks mandates in place for FFP2 masks in shops and public transport. Once the lockdown restrictions start being lifted, do you think Boris Johnson should implement these rules and follow what Germany's path is on this particular issue of face coverings?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because I've seen this in the last few weeks, actually. In America, particularly, you're seeing a lot more different type of masks. And this is PPE that's being built directly in America using the Defense Production Act, which has been enrolled so that the masks can be built and PPE can be built. And you're seeing this in Germany as well, Charlie, where you have these different sets of more masks that are more effective and more less contagious to you and gives you great protection on the mouth and the face and everything as well. I personally would like to see these, the more masks here, the better. And if we need certain variations of masks, such as the one they've got in Germany and US, even double masking could be a good idea as well. And I think that's something that should be considered because double masking gives you well over 90% protection from catching the virus potentially, especially if you're indoors, especially indoors, but outside as well. I think it's useful, especially with variants about as well. So I think more powerful masks and even double masking could work in the future. I mean, we don't, I think, it's not a strict rule in America that you have to double mask, but at least wear a mask. But in Germany as well, they've got these really powerful masks and they're very, very effective, and they could be good use here in the UK as well as Germany and US. It could be good use to help these masks because they give you a lot of protection, and they may well be needed to stop variants from spreading across this UK actually as well. So yes, I
Zach,
would
you know
agree.
what? I actually agree with you on that point. I really do, because I think the thicker masks do actually offer more protection. I mean, in shops where you've got loads of people, I often actually think they would be better to wear in somewhere like a crowded space because I think they do offer protection. I'm personally, I've not tried one on, and I know they're not the most comfortable. They're very tight round the face, but in busier areas like shops, they would offer more general protection from COVID, and that will be something that we could potentially in the UK invest in. And I know some people are wearing them to try and potentially slow the spread of the virus. And Zach, as well, I mean, it's an interesting one with masks because there's been a lot of calls for this across the UK in busy outdoor spaces like markets to stop new variants spreading. It's an interesting one, is it? What do you see a potential debate in Parliament on this in the UK House of Commons?
I think it's something that I think the government should consider taking up because the more masks they have, the better. And they probably will need, as we know, as we advance through this virus and we learn how to make these masks. I think looking at variations of masks and how they protect you is something that they could consider, and that they could use in the future for more additional PPE. So looking at masks, I think it's one thing, and I think that needs to be brought up because different masks could offer different protections. I mean, they're all good, whatever's comfortable for you. A mask is a mask. I mean, I could just put my, I could put my shirt across my face, and that's not necessarily going to give me protection, though, surely. Just putting like something like a dressing gown, which I have on here, and just like a hoodie over me. I mean, you can act like a mask. It may give you protection. It might as well, may well do. But wearing a mask and buying a certain variant of mask can give you a lot more protection. And if we're looking at the different versions of masks, I think it's something we certainly should look at because I think they're crucial to just giving that extra bit of protection. I know it's saying 90%, 95% is good, is great, and it's very unlikely, but that extra 1 or 2, 3% could be extremely helpful to whether you do actually accidentally get this virus or not. I think it's extremely important that we're covered by those extra couple of percentages in the future just to protect us and protect others.
As well as that, Zach, and the thing is as well, another thing about the masking as well, or what I found with the lockdown, especially the roadmap that Boris is going to release on the 22nd, it's going to mean that we need to see more support for like getting masks out there, and also like with schools as well. Should there be stricter measures even in schools, in classrooms? Say, should you wear a face covering in a classroom when you're around loads of people gathering? So there's going to be restrictions on that will have to really come into force in legislation. So it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of weeks, and we'll keep you updated with all the coronavirus news. There will be a review next week, I believe, on the lockdown. I believe that's the 15th. To my knowledge, is that correct? And Zach,
yes,
what do you expect? What I'm going to give you a prediction now. What do you expect Boris's roadmap will feature? What is your rough sketch of it?
So if we're going to go by briefings in the newspaper and what's been projected, so it looks to me like it will be the first thing that opens is that we'll get an announcement on the 22nd. We won't have restrictions relaxed that day, but we will have some restrictions lifted the 8th, with schools opening potentially as well. Charlie may have a longer school day, which what's being briefed in the papers potentially on that one. So I don't know how you would feel about having to stay in school a bit longer to catch up on. Yeah, I think you sound a bit, if I was a student, I'd be a bit worried. Yeah, it would be interesting, but let's see on that one. We don't know yet. But so we may have pubs open in May. I think the government has kind of dismissed that report saying that pubs will open in April, but without the alcohol and everything like that. And then I don't know. We may well see if that's possible. You may well see there's some open of entertainment as well. I expect the general hospitalization,
non-essential
hospitality unit. Yeah, I expect they could go for non-essential shops. They could reopen there as well if needed to be.
April, probably more like that.
April, May time. Yeah, I think if March starts with school opening and April non-essential shops, and then the hospitality industry opening May, maybe we get the beauties, entertainment potentially June, July, maybe we'll see about that. And you never know, you may get a summer holiday. I don't want to go, so we don't know yet, but you never know, you may get away with
a vaccine passport.
Yes, they've dismissed that. The government this weekend, Nadine Zahawi, the vaccine minister, on her remark yesterday, dismissed that. But it may well be needed. That you never know. It may well be needed. I mean, Ed Miliband said on Andrew Marshall that they should consider it if needed to be. But yeah, I see. So I see it around about schools opening, education settings in March, April, probably non-essential shops, May, the hospitality unit, and probably June, July. All the entertainment areas opening as well. And we may see as well. I think in April time we may start seeing a gradual lifting the restrictions in terms of who you can meet up with, how many you can meet up with. I think we're going to see something like that. Hopefully, I don't want them to rush this, Charlie. I don't want them to rush this because we don't want to go to a situation where we rush opening and yet we're still seeing infections go back up again, deaths go up again. I mean, I know it's so important that I think they'll probably open the care homes as well quite early as well, if may be, because all the over 80s will be vaccinated. Yeah. So I think as well, they need to be careful. And once we start vaccinating a bit more in terms of the over 50s, then maybe we can start even lifting even more restrictions after that then. So May, June time, I think when most restrictions will be lifted. But I think it'll be a slow opening for March.
Yeah, I think borders should be shut, I reckon. I think they should go mandatory hotel quarantine to stop the new variants coming in.
I've always said, I've said last week, Charlie, that these measures, this hotel quarantine, it's too half-hearted to me, and it's coming in too late as well. They've delayed this so long. It's only starting for next week, as far as I'm aware, the 15th, which is next week. It's too long, it's too little, too long, and it's not good enough, I think, Charlie, in terms of the quarantine. They're going to have to strengthen it at one point, Charlie, because I don't think it's good enough.
Yeah, well, that's the hotel quarantine debate there. So that's our view on the roadmap. We'll keep you updated on the 22nd. This address will be made, I believe, in the House of Commons. Is that correct, Zach? It's going to be Parliament.
Yes, I imagine he'll go to probably Parliament first before doing a press conference in the evening, if necessary, as well. So he'll probably do he'll make it to Parliament first. Imagine at 3:30 on the Monday next. Not next week, but the week after, because Parliament's in recess next week. So he'll do it on the 22nd, probably at 3:30. That's normal time for statements. And then he'll probably do a press conference after that in the evening, probably about 7, depending on how long he's stuck in that the Commons for. So it'll be a long day then, I have to say, for the Prime Minister that day. He'll have to sell it. He'll have to make sure he has to sell that plan, and he have to get support for it. And we'll have one group to watch out for, Charlie. It's the COVID recovery group.
Yeah, the Tory,
the Tory backbenchers, see how well they react to it.
I mean, Zach, there's a huge rebellion, isn't there now? There's a huge rebellion on this. I think Rishi Sunak said he wouldn't back another lockdown, I think, as well. Mark Harper, the chair of the COVID recovery group as well, he was calling for a more of a easing of the restrictions, talk of restrictions being lifted a bit earlier than before March the 8th because of the vaccine rollout. I mean, Zach, what do you make of some of these opinions by some of these Tory backbench MPs?
Well, yeah, the thing is, Rishi Sunak's probably the most anti-lockdown of all the people in the cabinet, because he's the chancellor, and he wants the economy booming back up again. We've got a budget next month as well, so he's gonna have to announce some big measures there. There's already talked for various things. We don't know what yet, but he's the most anti-lockdown. And, I think this Mark Harper's obviously concerned because, as you know, schools in Wales and Scotland are opening earlier than in England, Charlie. They're going back a week earlier than what they are in England. And whilst they're managing rates better there, presumably, I think they're voicing their concern that, we're leaving that school children one week let behind too much. So, yeah, I think they're one key group to watch out for when they announce this on the 22nd. It's the COVID recovery group. They're the ones, the most lockdown skeptics that we need to watch out for, I think.
And also some of the actual Tory, the 1922 backbench MPs as well. You've got Graham Brady in that group. In the 1922 committee, you've got loads of them. You've even got Robert Halfon as well, I think, who's sort of a education, wants to get schools back. You've even got Steve Baker as well in the COVID recovery. And you've got, of course, the frontbencher, and of course Desmond Swain, the lockdown skeptic, should I say? And Zach, have you got any more news from Desmond Swain on his issues at the moment? What do you think's going to happen with him?
He's been quiet. He's been quiet in this week. I think he's been given a telling off, and that's it. I think that's all he's been given in terms of what he said. So I don't know where I think he's going to play a bit more of a nicer boy when this gets announced. I think he's been warned by the whips now, and I think he doesn't want to cross that line. So I think he'll be a bit more mature when this announcement gets made. I think in terms of his opinions.
Yeah. And Zach, I remember throughout the whole crisis of his quotations he made about couple of quotes. We had one quote which was a pettifogging malice when he made a comment in the Commons. Pettifogging malice, herd stupidity, going by Sweden's model, and also Project Fear as well with the graphs. I mean, Zach, what do you make of
Project Fear? Where we had that one
coronavirus lockdown restrictions in England?
Oh yeah, Project Fear. Where we've had that one before. Oh yeah, Brexit. We've had that one before. Yeah, he plays very well to the COVID skeptic crowd. One which I obviously don't agree with. In terms of, I don't agree with the Sweden saying, "Oh well, Sweden works." No, it just doesn't. It just doesn't. Sweden does not work. It will not work here. No doubt about it. No matter how much COVID skeptic scientists that you bring across, Sweden does not work. I'm afraid.
I know Nigel Farage said that once, didn't he? Farage said that on this.
And do you know the thing is about Nigel Farage, Charlie? He advocated for lockdown early on, and then he's done a 360 when he launched the Reform Party and said that lockdown didn't work. So, I don't know whether there's political opportunism there, but he did a big 360 in terms of that. He's not a fan of lockdowns now. I don't know whether he's been reading the wrong people, but yeah, I don't agree with him.
You can see what Nigel Farage said. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Zach. I mean, everyone's got their opinions on the lockdown, especially the Tory backbench, because it's very competitive, and I'm sure we'll hear more on the 22nd about the lockdown. But we're going to move on, Zach. One of the final before we chat about Brazil, Formula One news. Very quick update on this. Lewis Hamilton signs a new contract for Mercedes. What do you make of that?
Yes, I think it's been a well-known secret that he would sign. It was just a case of when. We got it today. Interestingly, you have to look at the depth of the detail, though, Charlie. It's only a 1-year contract. So all this fuss about whether he would sign or not, we'll be back here again in 12 months' time, potentially, about whether he's going to sign again for next year. I wonder, if it's a 1 year, I just wonder, is he going to stay on? Is he decide that if he wins the championship this year, that he's going to suddenly, I'm going to give it up. I'm going to give out F1 at the end of the year, which is why he signed a 1 year. Or is it because, he wants to look ahead to 2022 and decide whether he wants to tackle the new rules or not? Because I think if he wants to tackle the new rules, he knows that Mercedes car will be good. And I think if he knows that car is going to be good, then I think he will just sign on further. He knew something when he signed on for Mercedes in 2013 with the 2014 car. So, yeah, I mean, we'll be in the same position in about 11, 12 months' time. But yeah, I'm very curious to why it's the 1 year. It could have been 2 years. Obviously, we know there's speculation that potentially there could have been a teammate clause in his contract if he did do a 2-year option. I think that would. I think he would have. Think that would be quite. I think that would be quite damaging if he did that teammate clause. I think it's just looking to be scared a little bit. But it's in 1 year, so we don't have to. I don't think we're going to be worrying about that for now. Until we get to next year. Now,
what do you make?
Yeah, good team sign.
To the final thing about Roman Grosjean joining IndyCar for street and road course races in 2021 as well.
Yeah, good on him. Good on him. He's obviously decided not to. He's deliberately decided not to do the ovals. I see. Because I think he said something that the crash that he had in Bahrain influenced him not to do the ovals, and I can understand because IndyCar, you're going 200 miles an hour in every corner basically, and you're literally you're not slowing down. You're literally doing 200 miles an hour in every corner and literally not slowing down. So I can understand his little fear about that, but he's going to go to the road instead, which is a bit more safer and a bit more, much more entertaining racing potentially as well. So yeah, good signing of him. I know Kevin Magnussen as well should sign up to Peugeot Racing for next year as well, to race at this Le Mans as well, which is so that's the former Haas drivers future decided, and I think good for them. I think they've got a good opportunity now to enjoy what they're coming up for them. I hope they both do well.
Yeah, Grosjean's, just to let you know, Grosjean has signed for Dale Conte Racing. That's who he'll be joining for now, IndyCar in 2021. So we're going to move on, Zach, to the final thing. Before I finish this up, I just want to let you know regarding to COVID in this country. There is a press conference at 5:00 in Downing Street. Will be hosted by the Health Secretary Matt Hancock, and in that press conference, I'm just going to get up now exactly who's going to be in it.
Jonathan Van Tam's one is one.
Matt Hancock, and I also believe as well Jonathan Van Tam, who is the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, will be joining that as well. And vaccinations, despite the snow, 12.2 million people have received their jab. So they've still managed to get at least nearly 300,000 vaccinations done as well. So that is some good news there from the vaccination program. Despite the weather, though, they still managed to get enough vaccinations out. To slow vaccination over the next couple of days. But Zach, moving on to the final part of the podcast now, Brazil. The Brazilian variant in Brazil, as we know, at the end of last year, or at the start of this year, Brazil's hospitals, literally in Manaus, becoming overwhelmed. What do you make of this variant, Zach, as well, in Brazil?
I wonder if Bolsonaro's playing this one down as well. I can imagine he is. It's just him. But Brazil has got a new variant as well in terms of COVID. The hospitals are completely at strain again. And if we just look at the figures as well, it was all going well up until November time, and that's when they had a spike in cases, 60,000 at one point as well, 67,000. Yeah, and it's yesterday 77,000 new cases in Brazil as well, completely disastrous there as well. And as you're probably aware, Charlie, the hospitals honestly off the roof, Charlie, in terms of hospitalization and the handling there as well, very bad, no doubt about it. It doesn't help that the Bolsonaro played it down. I don't know whether he's still playing it down, but the hospitals don't look good. I saw a feature piece last week about it. It doesn't look very good at all, really, to be fair. And it's interesting because he's got an election coming up as well. I think next year, he's got an election coming up. And he's a bit under pressure, I think, as well. So, yeah, not looking good, I think, for him. I don't know whether he's got a loyal fan base, though, which is the thing. So he may get re-elected out of this, Charlie.
Exactly.
About it.
Yeah. I mean, Zach, deaths in Brazil absolutely soared over the last 24 hours, like 1,500 further fatalities, if I'm believed to be correct.
Yeah, around about that figure. So, yeah, the deaths are quite bad there with that variant. I mean, they just reported 77,000 new cases there, which is off the roof in terms of this peaking. The variant there, we don't know what the effects of the variant there on the vaccines here either, Charlie, which is interesting. We know the South African ones here, but we don't know. Obviously, there's no widespread of the Brazil variant at the moment, so we don't know how much that will have an effect on the vaccines and the efficiency of them. I hope to God that it's not as bad as the South African one. I mean, to be fair, Brazil though could be just as bad in terms of anything as well. So yeah, the Brazil's in a mess, and like they have been for the whole last year or so, in terms of their handling the COVID and the death rates and hospitalizations. They got terrible hospitals there, Charlie. They bury people, open funeral. It's like fields become funeral areas, so they just run out of places to do them.
Horrendous.
Yeah, it's a mess there. It's a big old mess. Yeah,
horrendous
absolutely.
in Brazil. Just looking at the vaccine rollout there, their president even asking people to refuse to take it as well. We need to be taking vaccines to stop the virus actually spreading. And he said on a video once that he wants people to refuse to take the vaccine. Now, how crazy is that?
Why? Like, how stupid can you be to tell your own people not to take the vaccine? Okay, I know he's a COVID denier, but good grief, I didn't know he was a vaccine denier as well. I mean, is he trying to deliberately kill his own people? That's extraordinary. Honestly, it's extraordinary.
I don't know what to say.
I sometimes think Donald Trump was bad, but Bolsonaro telling people to refuse to take the vaccine?
He's correct. That's
worse.
That's anti-vaxxer right there.
That's an anti-vaxxer right there. That's a definite anti-vaxxer. I don't know what we even deal with Brazil in terms of that sort of quite fragile nonsense that comes out of his mouth, because that's just bad.
It's horrendous.
Bad. Honestly,
it's horrendous.
Ridiculous statements to make.
So that's Brazil. Just before we go, Zach, one more question. It was in BBC News the other day on testing. They've been expanded to more workplaces. I believe over 50 employees can now get tested at smaller workplaces. What do you think by the government to introduce this restriction? Is it a good move for them?
Yes, I agree. Well, that's a welcome move to expand testing to workplaces. That's certainly a good move. I think that'll help many employees across the country make their workplaces safe and just know whether they got COVID spread or not. I think it's very helpful. Good expansion there. Testing, I very much welcome that. Very good news of expansion of testing, Charlie. That's great news. No doubt about it. And that's needed. I think that's one of the areas that we're missing out. But I think that's covered now. So you get basically getting testing everywhere. Now,
that's
Charlie,
the lateral flow testing, I believe.
Yes,
coming in places.
I think so. I don't know whether I saw this earlier, because I normally read a newspaper.
Yeah, it is lateral flow testing. Yeah,
it is lateral flow testing. That's great. Yeah.
We do question the accuracy of them, but if at least results come back within half an hour. So the good thing is that the workplaces have got that testing available to them, so that if anyone did test positive, like the South Africa variant as well, they can isolate these cases. So
absolutely,
very important,
Charlie. Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. I mean, these lateral flow tests, you can question some of the accuracy. But, they're a good indicator, and especially key to workplaces where you're working there and you need quick results. That's important. It gives a good indication, even if it's not 100% accurate. It does give a good indication of whether you do have COVID or not. And they're extremely important, like workplaces. If we need to get off quickly to work or anything like that. I mean, 30 minutes an hour beforehand, they're very needed. They're needed, even if not totally reliable.
Should school and Zach, there's been talk as well about ministers sending lateral flow tests home for schools. What would you make if that was announced, when the schools potentially would go back?
Yeah, I know there's a bit of debate about this earlier about what they're going to do because they're planning to do mass testing around schools. Should we send them home to kids who are in school as well? Should we send them home as well rather than in school? Yes, I think they could do that as long if they can expand the testing. Then yes, we can send them home as well. I think there's already big rollout of lateral flow tests across the country. So I think that's it's just as helpful as well, Charlie. In terms of making sure checking whether your kid's got COVID or not. I mean, hopefully not. I think that's one area that you need to look out for, really, to be fair. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think I would support that.
We will have more updates on that in the next couple of weeks. Zach, what do you expect will happen with schools? Do you expect to be a statement in the Commons again?
Well, I think we may get a statement on how the school day works, because there's obviously talks, Charlie, about them extending the school day potentially. I mean, Charlie, how do you feel about that, mate? Because if you have to go to extended school days, I don't know how you would. I think
I would. I don't mind it. I mean, it would be something that I could potentially support, but I'd have to have the parliamentary scrutiny on this, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think they need a debate on this issue. It's very, very important.
I think, Charlie, if they do, there's some downsides and there's some upsides to this. Because I think if you do extend the school day, then yes, you do get, extra time. You can catch up more on that. But then I think that the only downside is that are we then working our kids too hard? Because if they're in school for longer, how are we then giving them room for, say, homework, for example? Because if I don't know how long the school day would be, and normally it's like a 9 to 3 day. Normally in some areas, it depends really on how schools set it up. But what I'm worried about is kids then not getting the time to do, say, homework or something like that, or even working them too hard. There needs to be more rests in there. And I have to. So there is some benefits, but there's also some downsides, and I think we have to balance that out.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a balancing option that if we do extend the work school days, that we balance that out and we a bit more lenient on how this is all working out.
Yeah, and also the House of Commons address. Who do you expect is going to do this, Zach, on the schools?
Well, it'll be Gavin Williamson if it's involving the school day. I know a lot of people will probably despair of the thought of Gavin Williamson forcing everyone to go to school a little bit longer. But it will be his brief, so he'll probably do it.
Because I know last time he didn't turn up to the Commons, it ended up being the Schools Minister, Nick Gibb, actually addressed the Commons, if I remember the last time they actually had a debate.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the urgent question that Robert Halfon wrote to the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle. So, also with Parliament. And Zach, any news from Parliament this week? Any debates coming up this week that are going to be interesting for the listeners to hear?
I can't think of anything. I know Matt Hancock's making a statement tomorrow on COVID-19, but as well as his press conference tonight. But I can't think of anything major that could be announced this week. Obviously, it's Parliament's last week before they're going to recess for a week. So, yeah, I can't think of anything for now up until we get to the 22nd, Charlie, which is when the Prime Minister is going to announce his roadmap for lifting restrictions. So, yeah.
I just have a bill. I've just have some things up here and some House of Commons order papers. You've got the 2021 to 2022. There are a few things on the order paper for this week that I've just spotted on UK House of Commons Twitter page.
Yeah.
But Matt Hancock will be doing a statement tomorrow on COVID-19. I expect to have some questions tomorrow from, I think Jonathan Ashworth will probably be in the chamber as well.
He'll be the one that briefs. He'll be one that will be there for the opposition if needed to be as well, because it'll be his brief as well. Yeah. I agree. Well, that's it for the Globetrotter Newscast tonight. Hope everyone enjoyed watching tonight's podcast. The first time on YouTube. That was the first time live that this show has been on. So thank you so much for watching this podcast, and we will see you again next week for another
update another podcast on COVID-19, also around the world with all the latest news. And of course, we'll keep you updated with the news next week on the data from the vaccinations as well.
Yay!